If I wanted to kill somebody, I'd take this book and beat you to death with it, and I wouldn't feel a thing. It'd be just like walking to the drugstore.
It always starts the same. A lonely soul searching for meaning. A charismatic leader with all the answers. A promise of something better. Salvation. Community. Purpose. But what begins as hope turns into control. And soon, the line between devotion and damnation disappears. Across the world, cults have lured in the innocent, only to twist their faith into something monstrous. Some demanded loyalty, others demanded blood. Tonight we step into the minds of the leaders who thought they were gods, and the followers who never escaped. These are the 7 most disturbing cult cases that ended in horror. Number 1. The Manson family. In the late 1960s, Charles Manson, a man with delusions of grandeur, formed a group of devoted followers he called the Manson family. At first, they sought peace and love, but under Manson's manipulative gaze, they found only violence and terror. Manson used drugs, mind control, and fear to lead his followers into believing that an apocalyptic race war was coming. He convinced them that they had to start the war themselves. Under his orders, on the night of August 9th, 1969, they brutally slaughtered 5 innocent people, including the pregnant actress Sharon Tate. The blood-spattered walls read Helter-Skelter, the name Manson gave to the blood-soaked prophecy he preached. But the horrors didn't end there. The next night, Manson's family killed 2 more victims, and again, they left messages of madness written in the blood of their victims. When the police finally cracked the case, they discovered that the Manson family was nothing more than a terrifying, bloodthirsty cult, led by a man who twisted love into hatred and murder. Number 2. Heaven's Gate. In 1974, 2 people, Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, founded a cult that would become one of the most bizarre and haunting in US history. They called it Heaven's Gate. Their belief? The Earth was about to be recycled, and the only way to survive was to leave their human bodies behind and board a spaceship. They told followers that the body was just a vehicle. The real self, the soul, could ascend to a level above human. The way to get there? Total obedience. Members gave up their families, their names, even their genders. Some volunteered for castration to be free from earthly desire. Things reached a chilling climax in 1997. A comet named Hale-Bopp was passing Earth. Applewhite declared that a spaceship was hiding in its tail, and it was time to leave. Over several days, 39 members dressed in matching black clothing and Nike sneakers. They recorded goodbye messages and calmly drank a poison-laced cocktail, one group at a time, lying down neatly to die. When their bodies were found, they were all still wearing their Heaven's Gate patches. They believed they were going home. What they found was something else entirely. Number 3. The Children of God. In 1968, David Berg founded a movement that promised a revolution of love and freedom. But what started as a free love experiment turned into a nightmare that abused thousands, especially children. Berg, who called himself Moses David, preached that God wanted the members of the Children of God to spread love through sexual acts, leading to what became known as flirty fishing. But the cult's true horror came from its treatment of the most vulnerable, the children. Under Berg's teachings, pedophilia was not just ignored, it was encouraged. Children were sexually exploited, and the cult's leaders justified it as a divine act. The damage continued for decades, with Ricky Rodriguez, Berg's own son, growing up in the horror and eventually taking the life of a former member before ending his own. By the time the cult faded, thousands of broken lives were left behind, shattered by the poison that had once been called faith. Number 4. Order of the Solar Temple. Founded in 1984, the Order of the Solar Temple began as a New Age group that promised spiritual enlightenment, but beneath the robes and mystical symbols, a far darker reality lurked. Leaders Joseph DiMambro and Luc Jouret convinced their followers that the world was coming to an end and only the faithful would ascend to a higher plane. They told their followers that death was the key to spiritual transformation. As a result, 53 members were found dead in 1994 in a chilling ritual. Some drank poison, others were shot, and many bodies were found burned. The deaths didn't stop there. The cult continued its deadly rituals in 1995 and 1997, leaving the world to wonder how many others had been drawn into their madness. For the survivors, the memory of their loved ones lying lifeless, bathed in robes, will never fade. Number 5. The Ant Hill Kids. Rock Theriault created the Ant Hill Kids in Canada in the late 1970s, preaching about the end of the world and the need for absolute obedience. But the reality inside the cult was far worse than anyone could imagine. Theriault, who began to call himself Moses, became increasingly violent and sadistic. He forced his followers to endure horrific self-mutilations, including cutting off fingers and performing gruesome, botched surgeries. Theriault himself would perform these acts while drunk, claiming to have the power to heal. But the true horror came when a young boy died after Theriault attempted a botched circumcision, and a baby froze to death after being kept outside during a snowstorm, a result of the cult's cruelty and neglect. In a final act of bravery, one woman escaped and told the police about the horrors inside. Theriault was eventually arrested, but the legacy of pain he left behind continues to haunt those who survived. Number 6. Superior Universal Alignment. In the late 1980s, a terrifying cult emerged in Altamira, Brazil. It was led by a woman named Valentina de Andrade, who claimed to receive messages from alien beings. She said a great cosmic shift was coming, and that some children were born without souls. According to her, these children were dangerous and had to die. Her followers, many of whom held positions of power in the region, believed every word. Between 1989 and 1993, dozens of boys between the ages of 8 and 14 went missing. Some were found mutilated, genitals removed, bodies burned or dismembered. The crimes were so brutal that the local police were too afraid to speak publicly about them. Investigations revealed a horrifying truth. Doctors, businessmen, and law enforcement were involved. They were part of the cult, and they believed these murders were part of a divine mission to cleanse humanity. Despite damning evidence, Valentina was never convicted. She still walks free. Many of her followers were released early and had their charges dropped. To this day, the cult's network remains a mystery, and the jungle in Altamira hides secrets that may never be uncovered. Number 7. People's Temple. In 1955, Jim Jones founded the People's Temple in Indianapolis, preaching about equality, fairness, and justice. His words resonated with thousands, including powerful politicians and celebrities. But behind the facade of hope, a darker truth festered. Jones, a man who claimed to be a divine messenger, led his followers to San Francisco, then eventually to a remote jungle in Guyana. He promised them a utopia, a paradise free of discrimination and poverty. But what they found was far from paradise. It was a prison, one where the air was thick with fear and the walls with oppression. In Jonestown, followers were forced to drink a mixture of Kool-Aid and cyanide, a final act of obedience. On November 18, 1978, over 900 people died, many of them children, in a horrific mass suicide. It was a desperate, gut-wrenching plea for salvation that ended in mass death. The world watched as the once hopeful sanctuary turned into a morgue where the scent of death lingered in the jungle, forever marking Jonestown as one of the darkest tragedies in history. All these cults have been around for years, and some of them never really disappeared. They just changed names, found new leaders, and kept going. Because it doesn't take much to fall in. Just one bad moment, one promise of hope, one voice that feels like truth. And before you know it, you're not following a dream, you're living a nightmare.